Hiya. So, I thought we'd talk about today is the sort of casual content in WoW. Very much inspired by the video that sort of Az did. I know various people have got various views about him. And hi everyone. On reasons for quitting, I sort of, because I never really thought about it before. I thought, well, you know, if people quit a game, you played it for a long time, it just, familiarity breeds contempt and all the rest of it. And I never really thought about the amount of content maybe just seeming the same all the time. Because in my particular case, I make sure I actively take steps. Sorry, just to my chair. I actively take steps in my case just to make sure that I'm not going to get burnt out. So I don't I mean, I used to ram the Mythic Pluses at that period of time when our artifact knowledge was complete. You know, we'd got it all, and we had to complete our artifacts before 7.2 came out. Sure, but now I don't. I do. You know, I'll usually do a flurry of them, like, you know, at some point during the weekend, someone in the guild will go, oh, should we do some Mythic Plus? And I'll go, okay. And then you do a load. Like, all I've done this week is we started off with a something and we went up to a plus 18. And then we ended up getting a plus 20 Cathedral. So we thought, no, let's steer clear of that one. Even though I'd go up for it, I don't care. I'd go up for anything. But, you know, now, and I don't feel after that, you know, if people ask me to go to do Mythic Plus, I will do. But I don't feel I need to. And I think a lot of people have. And if you do that, sure, you can get burnt out by it. Same with world quests. You know, if people feel they have to do all the world quests, and they're doing that every day, especially on multiple characters, I can see how that starts to become very, very samey as well. So what I thought I'd first of all just go through what I mean by the sort of casual, repeatable content effectively. So what have we got in Legion? We've got questing. You could argue now is a level cap thing. Not only did they give us a whole zone just for level cap stuff, they've also done the zone scaling at least for Legion zones, which means actually you can go back and do the quests that you missed off from the other zones as you were leveling. And it's not like going back and doing green or grey quests. You know, it's still, although you're not getting experience from it, you get the gold anyway. So you could actually do that if you're interested in those storylines, and that's fine. You've then got world quests. There's almost always going to be, you know, okay, you can just blitz them and finish them off, but then later on that day more will come up anyway, so that's sort of always going to be there. You've got Mythic Plus dungeons, which you can sort of do all the time as well. I'm probably missing something out, aren't I? Not questing. Oh, I suppose for this one we've got to bring PvP into it. So I suppose you've got your rated battlegrounds and arenas as well. And I was just wondering, are there things that have been in World of Warcraft in the past which, although it's the sort of content that's going to last well, because I think that's what Blizzard need to do. They need to design content that's not going to be consumed immediately. So they want it to keep going on. But sometimes I wonder if maybe in Legion they've tried to come up with content that is intended to last the whole expansion, and maybe you don't. And there is actually one type of content that they brought in Legion. And again, if you've watched Az's video, he mentioned this one as being actually a really good piece, certainly an original piece of content as far as World of Warcraft is concerned, that people don't do anymore, or very rarely, because it was the sort of thing that was interesting to start with, but it hasn't been built on. It's not the sort of thing that's going to last till expansion. So should we start off by firing that off? Who can tell me what that is? What is the content that was sort of introduced in Legion that has not been designed to last the whole expansion? In fact, it didn't even last really much beyond 7.1, if it even lasted up that point for most people. Oh, straight away from Grip. Yes, the Withered training scenario, which is quite nice. But it's a long time since I've been doing it, because, you know, you could argue it's a decent sort. Actually, I wonder how much artifact power you get from it now with our artifact knowledge. Maybe I should have a go at it, just to see. But, you know, that's quite a nice piece of content. But obviously, once you've done it every week, or every however many days it was, every few days, you start to get bored with that. It's not the sort of thing where anything's been added to. And then it put me in mind of another piece of content that we had actually in Vanilla, where in Silithus, you had the thing where it wasn't right from the start of the game, it came in later, and you had with a Twilight Cultist, and you kill the Twilight Cultist, and you get the 3 bits of a disguise, a hat, a robe, and shoulders, I think it was. And then you can disguise yourself as a cultist, and then activate a small stone, and there's a mob appears from that, you kill that, you get something that lets you, with another disguise, you need another disguise now to activate a larger stone. And finally, I think the largest stone, which summons like a raid boss. Would that sort of content work? Again, it's not going to be, unless you add to it, the sort of thing that lasts all expansion. But would that sort of thing last even a couple of months for something that actually wouldn't take a lot to put into the game? Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. With the withered training scenario, you could argue, not just new rooms, they could have done a whole new zone for it, couldn't you? Because you get teleported to it anyway. They could have actually just done a new map, couldn't they? With the withered. You know, and you could have, yeah, new bosses, more difficult ones for the people that have got all the initial bonuses to boost their withered. More difficult bosses, more difficult like types of trash, more difficult rooms, more traps. They could have introduced different things in there, maybe little puzzles to try and solve, you know, things where it was difficult to move yourself around whilst keeping all your idiots together. The Silithus thing, I don't know. I say I've not really done the mini holidays thing. They did do a Silithus event for the opening of AQ. I'm not sure that they did they do a thing with the Twilight, because it's not really related to Twilight Cultists. The AQ thing, it's a different thing. But I don't know. I haven't done any of the mini holiday stuff. Because that's what I mean. I mean, this is why I've only really just thought of this, because my attitude has been that there's plenty of content in Legion. You know, my only complaint has been, at times, a compulsion to do more than I actually want to do. Like, I was thinking, I forced myself to do... I say force myself as if I didn't want to do it. I did want to do it. To go on Elder Scrolls Online a little bit this week. Only a little bit, like an hour. And even in that, all I did was wander around my my desert island. I have now my character that I got off the store. Because I just feel that I'm doing stuff on World of Craft when actually, you know, I'd quite like to spend just Sunday afternoon doing another game or something like that. But yeah, I mean, the mini holidays are sort of, I think, okay, but because I don't think a lot of people do them, I don't think it breaks the monotony as much as Blizzard might like, and of course it's not on very often. Like, the day-to-day thing is, you know, Mythic Plus dungeons, world quests, which I've still got to do. I've got to do my world quest. I haven't done them for a couple of days, so I do have to do some today. For the Emissary Cache. The, what else? Completely forgotten again. You know, like rated Battlegrounds arenas if you're into PvP. Questing, I mean, really, the only questing you have to do, I suppose, is the Soromok storyline. If, you know, on one character at least for flying, and then probably on other characters that you like to raid with, because it's useful to have the portals, especially for Nighthold, although not essential once you've got flying. That's the irony. If you get it on one character, you're okay. Oh, if you put a delete, yeah, sorry, it says deleted link. You know, links don't work here, so you just have to tell me, Etla. Troves as a rogue only thing now, right? I don't know about that. My rogue is still like level 100 or 101 or something. I haven't really done much on that. I've only been doing, you know, the only leveling I've been doing on Alex recently is when I see an invasion up and I've got time to do it, I drag my warrior higher. I drag my warrior around, because it's on another account, around the invasion points. I tried then doing it earlier this week. I did that with my warrior. The reason being that people try and mug low levels. So I thought, well, if anyone... I can't stop them killing my warrior, but I can avenge them. And I have had to do that a couple of times, where someone's killed my warrior, and I've had to mug them. But then afterwards I thought, well, if I do it on my druid, if I hang back, especially just on the bosses, if I don't try and do the normal ones, just on like the boss type things, hang back until it's nearly dead, then sneak in with a quick moonfire, and then try and get away again, I should be all right. But no, every time you go anywhere near it, people go, oh, low level. I know, I'll kill them, because that's fun. Oh, you got Chain of Thrain. Oh, grats. Second legendary. What was your first? Or is it the second legendary? What do you mean, second legendary today? You got your second legendary today, or you got two legendaries today, and Chain of Thrain was the second of them? No, I haven't done holiday events yet. And then, so yeah, I mean, so what I was thinking is, like, I have played a few games. I would like to play a bit more. In terms of MMOs I've played, and all of them have got some sort of content for you to do, like, on a casual basis. I've played Lord of the Rings Online. I've played Age of Conan, but I didn't really get into that very much. Star Wars The Old Republic, Elder Scrolls Online, Warhammer Online, I suppose, although that was very much the only thing to do on a casual basis with PvP, but it was actually quite fun. And then thinking of PvP, what would you call it now? In Elder Scrolls Online, very similar to Warhammer Online in many cases. One thing I like about that, and that's not samey at all, it's like, if I go into rated battlegrounds, I know if it's a flag-based one, like not capture the flag, but a stand at the flag, I'm going to be stood at a flag. If it's like a Arathi-based, I'm probably going to be the stables. If it's that Gilneas thing, I'm going to be like the middle one. You know, whatever, I'm going to be at a flag just guarding it. I can't even remember the names of half of these things. But whatever it happens to be, I just go and do what shall I do, and I go and do that. And it's always going to be the same. Whereas something like Elder Scrolls Online or Warhammer Online, when you've actually got a whole proper world PvP thing, but it's separate to the PvE zones, then you go in there, you don't know what you're going to expect. What are you going to be doing? Are you going to be besieging a fort? Are you going to be defending a fort? Are you going to be going around capturing smaller things? You link up with a group as well. You don't need to go in your own group. You just link up with another group, and you're just doing whatever, and you don't know what you're going to be doing when you go in, and it is very different. And it can change suddenly as well. You can go from attack to defense to like harrying from the flanks or whatever, to like building and using siege weapons, to going around trying to destroy some siege weapons, sneaky arrow shots at some mage down there, that sort of thing. And you know, and I would really like, if something like that was in World of Warcraft, I would actually PvP. So let's have a look. Are you going to be playing Fury on my warrior? I don't know. I have got the bind on equipped legendary, and it now works. It's not bugged anymore, so that's good. But at the moment, I'm not doing anything on my warrior because the only leveling I'm doing, as I say, is on the back of my I've got /follow on my paladin while he drags them around invasion sites. Because I really can't. Every time I think about leveling another character now, I know I'm not going to do with anything with it at level cap because I can't be asked, and I'd rather play, like, I want to play Elder Scrolls Online again. I want to play Star Wars The Old Republic a little bit, just every now and then. Even Lord of the Rings Online I miss a little bit. MOBA type of battleground, possibly, but again, even those sort of things, like I've never bothered to try and get into Overwatch or anything like that because I don't enjoy that either, because it's still the same. It's got the same problems that Battlegrounds have. It is very, for me, very similar. You know, like PvP players keep saying about PvE players, oh, you're just doing these scripted events. I find far more variation in PvE than I ever do in PvP, because whenever I do PvP, it's the same thing you're doing. Whereas in a world PvP with things to capture and defend and all the rest of it, and it's much more varied, because you don't know what you're going to come across. You could come across a larger force, because that's the other thing with rated battlegrounds. Even though you might not be evenly matched in terms of effectiveness, you're evenly matched in terms of numbers until one team decides it's losing and 10 of them leave. That's not necessarily the case. You could be outnumbered, and then you have to think, how can you, with smaller numbers, still get some fun out of it? So you've got to think tactically much, much more. I really would prefer something like that. I don't even know what the Warden Towers are, really. I really don't know anything about PvP. Excuse me, I haven't even, I mean, I've done a few of the rated battlegrounds because it is good AP, and it's all right doing it now and then, like a session every now and then, every week or so, if I can get a group, is not unenjoyable. If it's a guild group, I obviously wouldn't want to go in and try and pug it or anything like that. That's sort of okay. Yeah, well, yeah, Lord of the Rings Online. I mean, I haven't got it installed yet. I mean, since I got the new computer, I've only just installed Elder Scrolls Online. I need to install Star Wars and Lord of the Rings Online and Black Desert Online as well, because I want to use some footage from all of those games for one video I want to do at the weekend, ideally. But it may have to wait till the following weekend. We'll have to see. But yeah, I mean, the thing about Lord of the Rings Online is I always sort of felt when I played it that, like a lot of people that play it, I strongly suspect I was playing it mostly because it's Tolkien's world in an MMO. The game itself has a lot of good things to say about it, but it was dated when it came out, and they haven't really moved it on. There's a few features. I'm not saying they haven't added any features or anything like that, but it still looks and plays like it did 10 years ago to me. Would I suggest a World PvP zone? Yes, and a huge one. I mean a massive one. I mean, Elder Scrolls Online, for me, I'm not saying it's the best one because I haven't played enough MMOs. For me, it was brilliant. When I first went in there, and I have a video on it, actually, from years ago when Elder Scrolls Online first came out, and I was actually playing it quite a bit because there was nothing to do in WoW at the time. And I got on my horse, and I started riding to where the action was. And it took me 10 minutes to ride to where the action was. This area was massive, and that wasn't going from one end to the other end either. I was just going from one end to where the action was. It was vast. You can get loads and loads of people in there, and you, as I say, you're not all in one place. You can have some people split up and try and sneak something else. Other people get wind of it. You can be like scouts, sneaking around trying to let other people know and hoping you don't get caught. Because if you get caught, you're buggered. There's so much to do there, and there's also reasons to go there even when the PvP is a bit quiet, because they also have other little things in there. Like, one thing they have in Elder Scrolls Online are these like public dungeons where you can go in. There can be other people about, but you can also sort of solo them as well. That sort of thing is a good idea, and there's stuff in there like that as well to keep you interested. You know, just in case the PvP is a bit down. So I would definitely recommend it. But the thing is, like, I don't mean Winter Grasp or Ashran. That was just crap. It's appalling. You know, when I was doing the Wrath beta and it was sort of about Winter Grasp, because I thought it'd be a really good idea, Winter Grasp, in theory. And then when I actually tried it out in beta, and I thought, what is this shit? Really? It was like a battleground with no real aim to it. I know there was like, there was an aim, but you were not that, well, most people weren't that interested in doing it. Would I put PvE incentives in the zone? Yeah, if the decision were up to me, yes. Like, as I say in Elder Scrolls Online, I would, to get some people to go into it. Nothing that's compulsory, nothing that you feel you have to do, because then it's just like World PvP in Warcraft. You're just getting ganks all the time when you don't want to do it. For me, PvP should be entirely consensual. It's a bit like no one can force you to go into a raid. Why should they force you to PvP? Do I think WoW should have LFR? I unfortunately would probably say yes. It's one of those things where I think they have to cater now to this casual audience, and it's difficult to say whether it's a casual audience that Blizzard have fostered or whether it's just happened over time anyway and they're just like servicing it. But there are people who do not want to either pug, because nowadays you can join a guild that just raids once a week for a few hours, once a week, doing normal, heroic, whatever. Or you can, you know, so you can do that. Now, if people, and whatever, you can find guilds on whatever day, sort of. Now, if you can't do, if you don't want to do that, I should think you probably don't want to pug either, because then that takes even longer, because you've got to spend an hour or two just getting yourself in there. And unless, I suppose, the best way to raid casually, I guess, is to roll something that people want, like a warlock or a healer. Then you'll easily get in. But for most people, I think, you know, you want to be in a guild even one night a week. If you can't do that and you don't want to pug, LFR is the only thing to do. And there are enough people who play the game that it makes sense. I dislike being, I mean, I don't actually. I feel compelled to do it every week. I should, but I don't. But I don't like the fact that there's that compulsion, because with LFR you sort of should do it, because apart from the AP in there, there's also, you're also building up your bad luck protection on your legendaries, which is not as important now if you've already got your BIS ones, but you still should probably do it. If they remove that element of it, so it was like, you know, raiders who are raiding heroic and mythic really don't need to bother with LFR, I would be, I would not mind it half as much, really. No, I didn't play. I mean, I played Black Desert Online when it first came out. The thing that killed Black Desert Online for me was not the grind or anything like that. So in many ways, it was sort of fun now and then, and there was a lot of fun things about it. It was the PvP, because I knew I was getting towards, like, up to a certain level, you can't be ganked or anything like that. You can't have people engage you in PvP. And I was getting up to the point, I think it's level 40 or something, I can't remember now, where actually that was going to happen. I was getting close to it, and I thought, I don't want that. I don't want people just mugging me. I don't like it. It's not fun. And that at that point, that's when I came to the realisation, this game is limited for me. I'm enjoying it, but I'm going to hit that thing. I either just keep levelling up characters up to that point and stop, or, you know, which is just silly. So at that point, I thought, it's not going to be a long-term thing for me. Let's have a look. I bet the guy who got a 925 socket raid finder draft of soul doesn't want to get rid of LFR. Well, I mean, those sort of things, I mean, you know, that's just going to happen really rarely. I mean, sometimes people just get the... It might have actually made more people do LFR, I think, if there's a higher chance. I remember in vanilla, it's quite stupid, really. I got... What was it called? The Dwarven hand cannon or something. There was a BOE gun, an epic one. And this was when, you know, epics were hard to come by. It was like summer of 2005, early summer of that, like June. And I had it drop off a mob in Silithus. And as soon as that happened, I announced it in Guild. All the hunters started farming in Silithus as if there was, you know, a higher chance of it dropping in Silithus than anywhere else. It was just a world drop. Could have dropped off any mob round about that level anywhere in Azeroth. I only run LFR for the augment runes. Ooh, I'd just rather buy them. We don't actually use that many augment runes in our guild, actually. Does giving a casual player Titanforge loot matter though? No. I mean, that's the thing. They're not going to have... They're still going to have an item level that's, you know... It's not going to be as high as people who, like, raid properly. It's one item. It might not even be all that brilliant for them. They'll probably never unequip it, but it might not be that brilliant for them. So LFR is okay for people who cannot do normal or higher for whatever reason. Not everyone has the time or is capable to raid. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. So, although... I mean, for me, personally, I wish there were just one raid difficulty. That's just for me personally, but I understand that the multiple difficulties do serve different sections of the community, and it is a good thing that people are into raiding at whatever level. So I sort of give my blessing to LFR. I just wish that for me, there should be no reason for a Mythic Raider to be going into LFR on that character, unless it's to like practice something. Let's say like, so I don't play Holy, but maybe I think to myself, I should maybe be able to play Holy. So maybe I go into LFR just to practice some rotation in a way that I'm not going to wipe a load of people by getting it wrong. So it might be useful as a training thing for that. But to feel compelled to do it for loot purposes, AP and legendaries, that's wrong. That shouldn't happen. So what it should be the case, I think, is you get AP. I think, you know, the AP tokens that drop off bosses should be the same size. I don't care. I don't think it should be any more for Mythic. And the reason is to help Mythic Raiders, because you should, for your AP, effectively be loot locked as soon as you've killed a boss on any level. So that way you're not compelled to do it on multiple levels. Unless, of course, you want to do it for gear purposes with the hope of it getting Titanforged. I don't mind that because the chance is low enough that you wouldn't feel compelled to do it. There is an advantage in having normal and heroic because it allows people to go from normal. Like there were some people in WoD, you know, who progressed normal, and it took them a little while to do it. Like it might have taken them a month or more, and then to go into the heroic was sensible in a way that they couldn't necessarily have gone straight to Mythic because of the numbers thing. You go from having a flex roster, which more a casual guild will like, to having now a rigid roster, which is not feasible for a lot of people. So then you're basically saying progress on this for a month and then wait 4 or 5 months for the next content. Thoughts on Warforged and Titanforged? An 830 boot turned to a 905 boot. It's so rare. It's so incredibly rare that I don't care personally. Good luck to whoever gets it. Knowing me, it would be me that gets it when I've got already 905 boots, and it probably wouldn't be as good. So, and this would be typical of the sort of thing that would happen to me. Get something Titanforged from 830 to 905, and I still disenchant it because it's not an upgrade. But if it is an upgrade for someone, good luck to them. Let's have a look. I am I am 905 item level equip and have never gotten into a raiding guild. I've already put grades. Well, there's a lot of people like that, actually. You know, when I'm trying to look for recruits, I look through WoW Progress, and the only sensible way to try and do it is by item level first of all, and then you start to look at people. And there's a huge number of people that have got decent item level, decent artifact level, but then no raiding experience. And there's actually, what surprises me is when you have people who have some raiding experience, and then you look at their logs and they're absolutely appalling. You think, how on earth have you killed those bosses? You have been carried hard. And then they've got the nerve to be looking for another guild, thinking they're, you know, good enough to get into a better guild. I had someone yesterday who was on 6 out of 10, and I approached them, and you know, it's fair enough to say sorry, not interested, but their response was, no, I think I need a 10 out of 10 guild. And it's like, you know, 6 out of 10, a little bit greedy. And as another officer in our guild said, well, good luck to them. Where was he? So there's a chance. There's always a chance. Let's have a look. I think the problem with getting rid of a difficulty with the guilds that are casual, I don't want to do normal, would have nowhere to go with heroicism. Yeah, that's exactly what I think. You know, Blizzard's attitude is, can I link my, sorry, I'll answer that in a minute. Blizzard's attitude is very much one of, they, you know, they need to supply stuff for the casual players as well. Only they, realistically, I suppose, will know the numbers, or at least I don't know the numbers, of people who do that sort of content but don't go any higher. So we'll have to see. My logs, I can't really link them here, but I can tell you if you look up Thete on the Maelstrom EU, then you will find them. But yeah, I mean, going back to the PvP, I mean, I've done that before, really, but that's, you know, not, I don't think that's fruitful. Another thing, actually, it might be worth discussing is, with the Broken Shore, obviously I think people who watch my content are going to sort of know what my attitude is to the supposed new quests we get every week. So if we think about it, the last few, it's what we had this week. This week, although I understand that in North America it's now the next week, but in Europe it's still this week. We've had the do 15 world quests, which we sort of would have done anyway, so that's not the new. Last week we had the 100 Centenax marks, which, all right, was doing something that I wouldn't necessarily do, but it didn't take that long. Certainly not what I call content. And the time before that was hand over a load of nether shards. Oh, by the way, here's all but one of them back. And then you think to yourself, well, when was the last time they did anything storyline like this? And it was Isle of Thunder, really, wasn't it? And the thing I liked about the Isle of Thunder is it felt like a siege situation, because the Isle of Thunder actually changed. You know, every time a new phase started, you could see the island change, like we were breaking down walls and stuff like that. And I'm wondering why we're not doing that in 7.2. I mean, I don't think it should be attached to actions we take. It's not like, you know, when we complete a certain quest, we should then see the Broken Shore change, because then you have phasing issues when you try and group with people. But just each week, or even every 2 weeks, just to have something different, the actual landscape change, just to give that impression of a siege, which we don't have. Everything's the same. Nothing is changing on the Broken Shore. We're supposed to be having this 11-week siege of the Tomb of Sargeras. Nothing is changing. Absolute nonsense for me. I don't know what anyone else thinks. But anyway, let's have a look. Would I recommend Ret Paladin? Is it a fun class? No and yes. It is a fun class. I think it is anyway. Admittedly, I am biased by the fact that it almost doesn't matter how they make a Paladin play. I would still want to play it. Would I recommend it? I would say it depends what you want to do. If you want to do anything that requires getting into a guild, it is more difficult to do that as a Ret Paladin than it is, not all, but a lot of other like DPS classes. Like, you know, there are some classes where you're in such short supply, you will be able to walk into guilds that are actually way ahead of your own skill level, really. Like Warlocks, for example. Like, I can't find one of them. Like I said, even a 6 out of 10 Warlock was turning us down. That's just out of hand. It's like, nah. I need at least a world first guild to join. I'm sorry. But no, so I wouldn't recommend it from that point of view. I would only recommend Ret Paladins for people who don't want to play anything else. If there's, or you know, if so, but it is fun. I think it's fun. So let's have a look. Comments. I found that people who haven't been in guilds often get bogged down by DPS meters, also not progressing on bosses. A lot of people in guilds get bogged down by DPS meters. Annoys the hell out of me. So many people, even in good guilds, that will look at those and it screws over your progress. I'll give you an example. Like we're on Gul'dan at the moment. So in the first phase, what you're doing higher, what you're doing is you're on Gul'dan. There's an ad that spawns a trapper. You need to kill that before it chucks out its second soul prism. And then every now and then you get the eyes coming out, you know. And so let's say when the eyes are coming out. Now, if you want to increase your damage on the meters, what do you do? Eyes are coming out. Oh, potential for AoE. So let's say you're on 5 holy power a couple of seconds before they come out. What are you going to do? I can't spend and build back up to 5 unless, you know, so what do? What I do is I make sure judgment gets fired off on Gul'dan as they come out. And I basically wait a couple of seconds. And then I'll do that. And that will up my damage. But the thing is, if the eyes are going to die anyway in time, which they do, all I'm doing by doing that is reducing my damage on Gul'dan and therefore risking that our guild doesn't make the DPS check on Gul'dan. All to try and pad my numbers. And that's where things like that act against progress. So, yeah. You're applying to a top 20 US guild. What do they look for in applications? Who knows? Like, different ones look for different things. What I would suggest is that you accentuate all your strengths. If your strengths are just raw damage numbers, really high percentiles, then just dangle that in front of them. Let them look through the logs in detail if they want to. And there's plenty that don't, even in good guilds. But if they, you know, if your strength is the fact that I would say my strength is the fact that I do the mechanics correctly, then you point out to bits in logs that demonstrate that you're actually the ones doing the mechanics. So just accentuate whatever your strengths are. Because that's ultimately what swings it for you. There's plenty of other questions that they sort of want to know. Like they want to know that your computer's good enough and that your internet's stable and, you know, your UI's sensible, your keybind, what your name is, you know, things like that. But ultimately what they want to know is how do you perform in a raid. And that you understand how to perform in a raid as well. I mean, even when people talk about the bit on, you know, explain your talent choice and stuff like that. I mean, if I'm reading an application, I gloss over that because half the people just copy it from a guide anyway. And, you know, and you can tell whether they make sensible talent. Because ultimately, I don't care what their talent choices is. You might have someone who goes against perceived wisdom and does really well out of it anyway. I don't know. I don't care. What I care about is what's their performance like. If their performance is good, they must have chosen suitable talents. Stalling with a broken shell for the Argus patch. I have no idea what they're doing. Yeah. Just abandon the ret. Oh dear. You abandoned ret at the end of WoD. Get back onto it now after playing Mage and Shaman. Yeah, I haven't really played much Mage. I played a little bit of Mage, I suppose, but I didn't level it up properly. I haven't done the Shaman yet. I do want to level up my Shaman. Partly because maybe it'll be nice to have an alt that can heal, and Shaman healing is not bad. And the other thing is that the class mount's really nice for Shaman, so I should probably level it up and get that. Because that's really nice. Really suits them. I'm just, oops, let's have a look. I'm just going to put the chat and check I haven't missed anything. Oh, Lady Daisy, you're not happy about Nighthold? I quite like Nighthold. What do I think of Legion so far compared to other expansions? I think it's a massive improvement on WoD. Even though for me personally, there was nothing wrong with WoD because all I play this game for is the raiding anyway, really. I don't mind that there's not as much to do outside of it. At the same time, it brought problems of its own. But the there are still things that I think they do that are not as clever. Like I said with the Broken Shore, and I've said this before, instead of saying a new quest every week, when they clearly can't deliver that, I would have said like a new event every 3 weeks. They could have delivered that. They could have done something substantial every 3 weeks. they can't do it every week because they've shown that by the fact that the last 3 weeks have been utterly pointless. And I understand that from Blizzard's point of view, they will argue, as they already have, that they intended, like, a lot of the really good stuff to come from this patch actually came out right at the start, and they intended to sort of spread it out. So it would have seemed that every couple of weeks something good was coming out, but they didn't, because they noted from the PTR that would have meant when 7.2 came out, people would be going, well, where's the content? It'd be they'd end up in a Tanan jungle situation. So they had to front load a lot of the good stuff. But that basically meant they couldn't. But they should have known that. They should have been able to foresee that. And it baffles me how Blizzard cannot. You know, they always say, oh, well, we didn't know about this at the time. We had to make a last minute decision of things that are bleeding obvious. You could see it coming a mile away, or any normal person could. And that's what worries me about Blizzard. They do really great work, and they have so many brilliant developers. It almost seems like they're not allowed to be critical of one another or ideas there, because otherwise you would head this off way before it goes live, way before. Hate the artifact pound, the too many legends. Well, I dislike the legendary system. I have not changed my mind on that. I think it's a bad system. I think, and I've said before, I think if you want to have legendaries, if you want to have this lots of legendaries idea, I would just make it a trinket thing. I would just combine the concept of trinkets and legendaries, because they keep coming up. They're trying to do lots of legendaries and lots of trinkets, and so they're stretching their ideas too thin, with the result that you end up with rubbish legendaries and you end up with stupid trinkets that have baffling designs. And the ones in Tomb of Sargeras are no exception. So I would just combine the two concepts, get rid of trinkets as such, have one trinket slot, or two if you want to have two legendary, and just have it so that legendary, it's like a legendary slot, in fact, that legendaries just become basically trinkets, and you put them in those slots. And I would just have it like that. The raiding in WoD was great. The raiding is almost always great. It's been great in every expansion. There's been individual raid tiers that have not been good, but very few of them. I could count them on one hand and still have fingers left, I think. I think the only bad tiers, what would I even say? A couple from Wrath. The Nax from Wrath was terrible. I suppose Trial of the Grand Crusader, but I didn't play that. I didn't progress through it. And Dragon Soul were probably the only bad tiers of raid content. Are there viable trinkets with no main stat? Yes, plenty. There are quite a few trinkets that just have like a secondary stat on it. Like, Arcano Crystal, for example, is one classic case. I think each spec having its own only legendary questline might be good. The thing is, I mean, Blizzard have said this as well. That, again, it's another thing they're coming to the conclusion of that I sort of thought about before Legion even came out. When you design class-based content, you have to do at least 12 of it. But for most people who just have one character, say, they're only seeing a 12th of that. So you're designing content, but only a 12th of it effectively is in use, which is a drain on resources. I mean, my big criticism of Cataclysm, even though I didn't play it from the start, was that they'd spent so much time redesigning the level 1 to 60 content, which people didn't even do, because they also brought in LFD, which meant the best way to level to 60 was just to queue dungeons anyway. And that probably detracted from the content later on in the expansion. Again, so, you know, you put in effort into designing this content, but it's only for a 12th of the population, and you're having to do, obviously, 12 times as much of it, and it stretches the resources. So I think that's the downside to it. I think in theory they're a good idea, and I would love them to do a substantial quest line every expansion, but I would just limit it to one. I would just do a single class quest line, maybe one that, you know, you do a bit of at the start of the expansion, then pick it up, you know, it reboots with another bit in the first content patch and so on through the expansion. But I would just focus their efforts on one. And not trying to, that's why I think they've said they're not going to do any more after the class quest mount. That's it for Legion, because they've sort of come to that realization as well, if they hadn't before. I don't know, I missed stuff. If you can do Heroic Gul'dan, you can do the first 3 Mythics, certainly. Well, these days you could probably do a bit more, because one of the main things that makes the next 4 more difficult is dealing with more complex mechanics whilst achieving a certain amount of DPS as well. But with the 7.2 traits and better gear, the DPS checks become more trivial, which means that you can focus on the mechanics and still make the DPS checks. Like, there's people killing Croesus for the first time now, not even getting close to the Enraged at the end. Not even getting close. All they have to do is focus on soaking. They don't have to try and stay on the boss till the last second before the bridge breaks or before they have to go out and soak Burning Pitch. So anyone who does that is just being silly. I mean, there's plenty that will do that, but, you know, that's their fault. Whereas it could be argued killing it earlier on, you had to try and do that because the DPS, even if you did the soaking well, you'd probably make the DPS check, but it was touch and go. Plenty of people kill Croesus for the first time falling into the water. It's just that Croesus died before they hit the water. We did that. Or at least on our second kill. So let's have a look. WoD Raid. Mythic made the guild a lot more toxic. I suppose, yeah, if you're used to Heroic and going to Mythic. It is a different thing in Mythic. Apart from anything else, people are a lot more accountable, which means the blame game can start to come out. And which is fine in theory, as long as you're blaming the right people and the right things. But sometimes you'll end up with a situation where blame is not necessarily accurately apportioned, in which case that doesn't help anyone. Oh, I remember this. Yeah, there was an issue with Croesus not awarding achievement for a few people. There was a couple of bugs actually because of that. Yeah, I think it's just the way that it works if you were really, really close on it. With 7.2 traits, Gul'dan Heroic isn't nearly as bad as in terms of even Mythic Gul'dan isn't nearly as bad. Like, you know, you can look at like the fat boss guides and stuff like that, and it talks about dealing with the Fell Lord ad, for example, in phase 1. We don't even get it. We kill it before that. You know, we can beat it before that. We don't have to. There's quite a few mechanics that the first guilds that killed it, or even the first 100 guilds that killed it, had to worry about. It was a concern for them. It was not for us. Which is why it's so annoying. We've actually got to kill it this week now. Because our main Fury Warrior is buggering off for like a long time. Which sort of sneaked up on me. I didn't actually realise. If I'd have known, I'd have got another Fury Warrior in. Let's have a look. Your guilds for... oh, I've done that one. Casual content. 7-minute queue for tanks for random heroics. Yeah, I tanked his queue last night and had to do... I had a bit of a queue on. It was fine because I got a satchel out of it. It was all good. Nice defiled augment rune. But, well, tanks, you know, tanks are too used to the easy life, queuing up and expecting an instant queue. To the point where I actually don't know why I don't tank the random heroic more often. Or even do that. I should do more random heroics than I used to. Why do we need... You don't need a Fury Warrior for Gul'dan, but they absolutely obliterate the eyes. And I imagine in phase 3 they'll do a similar job on the parasites as well. The eyes, whenever you get ads, they need to die like immediately. Not like in heroic. Like in heroic, if the eyes duplicate, you don't really want it happening, but you get away with it. It just means you have to carry on DPSing the eyes, and it's quite common for the empowered eyes to duplicate, but you cannot really have that on Mythic. The timings of and the other abilities coming in are so crucial to deal with and do so much damage that you need to do that. How to catch up with such high amounts of AP? Well, the people who've got Concordance now are, yeah, they're the ones who have just absolutely rammed it. I've got some in my guild. It doesn't matter. They're a few points ahead of me. I'm like almost at 49. And I have, as I say, I am deliberately not allowing myself to get burnt out on the content. I have done, each week I do a few Mythic Plus dungeons, inevitably, because although I make myself available to do them when people want, I only make sure I do mine. If people, don't pester me, which often they don't, because there's plenty of other people to do them, then I don't do that many. I do world quests. I don't do all the world quests, I have to confess. But you do a few of them. You do some on Broken Shore, you get more AP that way. Do the raids. And again, I don't do all the difficulty of the raids either. And I'm still on 49 because, you know, the artifact knowledge just lets you catch up to them. And if you're a few points behind them, it really doesn't matter because you'll catch up. Yeah. But, well, yeah, I mean, we've got 2 Fury. Well, one who was an arms warrior who's gone Fury now and is now doing... He's gone from bottom damage to top. Shouldn't they make Mythic +0 curable with proper requirement? No, they shouldn't. And the reason for that is then you would say, what's the point of Heroic? There has to be a difference. The whole point of the Mythic system is that you... Because you've got to remember, there's a lot of... First of all, there's a lot of people that wanted, you know, and have asked for some time since it ever left the game, the idea of dungeons where you have to visit, you know, form your own group and physically visit it. It's a very unsociable experience hitting a button that just randomly queues you with people. And I know you can still do that through the group finder, but there's at least some communication required there. Someone's got to talk to someone. So no, I mean, if you're thinking on that is Mythic 0 is so easy you can do it in a pug, the answer to that is, well, the whole point of it is just to get your key and then push to the more difficult ones anyway. So no, I think they should keep... The whole Mythic system is part of a ladder, really. And it all should be treated the same, in my view. Because you've got the Heroic to sign up to. That's your sign-up content. Mythic, there to be the first thing people will talk to form. Yeah, it is. It's the first content where you actually have to treat people as people, other players as people, and not just NPCs who do random things. But yeah, I was just trying to think in other terms of content. I mean, you know, coming back to the main theme, does anyone know any other sort of content from other games that'd be useful? Is anyone like another one that I was sort of wondering about? Oh, do a question here first. M0 is harder than M2. No. No. Because the thing is, M0 is not a bad thing to do, even if it's not difficult for you or you don't need a key, because it actually gives you reasonable artifact power. It's not bad if you rush in there quickly, and it's nice. You know, nice. It's sometimes nice to do little casual Mythic Mythic 0 runs, and it's also useful as well if you want to boost a friend who's on a freshly in character. You know, so it serves some very nice purposes. Mythic 0. Why should someone bother to do Mythic Plus above +10? You get more artifact power. Not only more artifact power from actually doing those dungeons, but in your weekly cash that you get each week, the amount of artifact power you do is based on the highest level key you did. And there's no real limit to that. A +20 will give you quite a lot of artifact power. In terms of the loot you get from that Mythic Cache, it's not. Or in terms of the loot from anything. The other thing is it just gives you better practice. Because remember, when Tomb of Sargeras, or when 7.2.5 comes out, the cap is going to go up in terms of which sort of dungeons to do to get the best gear. So +10 will no longer be the best one. We don't know for certain which one it is. The one Ian Hazacosta said in that last Q&A was +15. But he did sort of make it clear he was just pulling a number out of his arse. They haven't actually decided what it's going to be yet. It's just going to go up. Mythic Plus keys with random affixers instead of having fixed weekly affixers. The problem with that is that instantly someone with the toxic, the deadly poisonous affixers isn't going to get their key done. It's bad enough already that you can get a key for a dungeon that a particular level people will be wary of. But if you've got random affixers, some people will inevitably get nice affixers. Well, people want to do that. And then people will get nasty affixers and people want to steer clear of that. So you have to be very, very... It is much better. Also, you know, you can... I mean, people are more likely to fail if you had random ones as well. Because you can imagine it, can't you? You do a dungeon with one set of affixers and you know, you get used to those, and then you do a dungeon where the behavior for the first one is the very wrong behavior to do for the second, and you end up wiping a bit, because I mean, usually the first 2 dungeons I do of the week, I don't even remember what affixes we've got. I'm just sort of I keep forgetting anyway, unless it's really obvious. But anyway, I'm going to call it there. So thanks for coming on. I will probably see at some point if I can cobble something together out of this to put on YouTube. Probably just the first bit. I don't know. I didn't really stay on task very well today, so it actually might be too much of a job to keep doing that. The trial of style, I assume you mean by that transmog show. Yes, I am looking forward to that, actually. But yeah, I'll see you later. There'll be another one of these, obviously, next Tuesday. I may stream something this weekend, but I'll just have to see what's on, because I've got quite a lot planned to get done this weekend as well. But yeah, thanks for coming on, and I'll see you later.